Hey guys, Cobra, and this is going to be my review of Battletoads. Battletoads, as most people know, is an NES title. It came out in 1991, and basically what its aim was to dethrone the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from their top spot in that realm. Now, some people view the Battletoads as just a cheap ripoff of the Ninja Turtles, um, but both have their differences, and I think in the end you'll agree with me in that Battletoads is a very good game, and in some ways outshines its rival, the Ninja Turtles. Um, so first, what we're going to take a look at is Battletoads on the NES. This is the originator. It was spawned onto other consoles, portables, other consoles. Um, and this is the original game. It was developed by Rare, came out in 1991, like I stated before. Um, and it's known for a couple things. One is its difficulty level. Now, its difficulty level is very high. I'd rank it right up there with Contra. It's a different type of game than Contra, but it's very difficult nonetheless. Um, it was well received, and trying to find them today, it can be somewhat tough. It's not a very common game. It shouldn't be hard to get on the internet, but as far as finding it out in the wild, it can be pretty tough. So, first game we're gonna take a look at is Battletoads on the NES. So this is Battletoads on the NES. It's a side-scrolling game. This is the beginning levels. Now, the problem isn't the beginning levels, it's the later stages are much more difficult, as simply hitting your enemies isn't going to get it done. Now, the one thing you should notice is how great this game looks. For an NES title, this looks phenomenal. One thing about the game is, on the enemy's final blow, you will develop some sort of advanced limb, and it's just mainly there for comedic sense. But for instance, on your final punch, when you're punching enemies, your fist grows to a huge, huge fist, and really just clobbers the enemy out of the screen. And like I said before, this game is difficult. Not to mention I'm not very good at it either. But I do enjoy it nonetheless. This here is the final boss. It's very unique in the fact that you are the first person of the boss. I've never seen anything like this before as far as perspective goes. And off to the second level. Now, it's
this is the map screen. Um, this level 3 is the hardest level that I've gotten to. I haven't gotten past that. This is the level 2. Um, but one thing you need to notice about this game is that each level's different. It's not the same old recycled thing over and over like a Final Fight or a Streets of Rage. You know, it's different every level. There's different gameplay styles, and that really adds to the fun and really the replay value. Now, the game offers a two-player mode, and it's a great two-player game. I'd recommend it. Um, one fault is that you are able to hit your enemies, so it can add to the difficulty. That sometimes unfair, but you know, it's something you're gonna have to deal with. And I've died. When you pause it, you get this catchy pause music. Also, it's okay, but sometimes it distracts from the actual purpose of pausing, which is sometimes to just go to the bathroom, or other times to hear what somebody's saying to you. So while it's good, it can sometimes get annoying.
So as you can see, Battletoads is a rather great title to add to the NES library. But it's not only on the NES. You know, it was ported to several other consoles, notably the Game Gear, the Game Boy, and even the Sega Genesis. Battletoads on the Sega Genesis, like you'll see, is very much like the original on the NES. It's an updated version of the game with 16-bit graphics, so let's check it out.
This is Battletoads on the Sega Genesis. Essentially, what this is a port of the original on the NES. In essence, it's almost the exact same game, though there are slight differences. Number one, the graphics are improved, um, but does it make it better? Well, um, not really. One thing you'll notice about this game is the music is not as good. At least in my opinion, it's not as good. Most people know the Sega Genesis had a rather weak sound chip. Um, and it shows here that even the NES had better music. Um, so as far as music, we'll give the heads up to the NES. And also listen to this. If you pause it, no music. That's not really a big deal for me, but it could be a letdown for some. One thing with the graphics is they are much more textured. They're not just multicolored, but there's also texture shown. And you know, visually the game looks pretty impressive. It's nothing mind blowing, um, but it looks decent. Man, but though I died right here, the game seems slightly easier, especially in the later levels. I don't know if it's because of the ease of the Genesis controller or what, but it does seem slightly easier. And also, the game does offer the two-player option once again. Now, this is again the final boss, and it looks slightly better. Though the whole thing's basically looks like a Virtual Boy. It it's nice. It's again, the graphics are enhanced. It looks a little bit more textured, and it sounds odd, but almost more believable in the fact that it looks more real, but still far-fetched. So in essence, it's the exact same game as the NES version, but with slightly better graphics and slightly worse music.
So we've covered Battletoads on the NES and Battletoads on the Sega Genesis. Overall, they're basically the same game. It's pretty much pick your poison. Or pick your choice, rather. Battletoads on the NES it has slightly worse graphics than the Genesis model, of course, but that's because the 8-bit and 16-bit difference. But the music in the NES version is slightly better, you know. We can't forget that. And it's like I said before, it's basically whatever you feel. So the Battletoads franchise was also on in different titles. There was a Battletoad in Battle Maniacs on the Super Nintendo, and that's a standalone title. Whereas these two are somewhat the same. That one's on its own. But there was also another series released, and that series is Battletoads and Double Dragon, the Ultimate Team. Now, this was ported onto the NES, the Sega Genesis, the SNES, and some portable consoles. The version we're going to be taking a look at is on the Genesis. Basically, what this is a matchup. They're not fighting, they're on a team of the Battletoads and the Double Dragon brothers, Billy and Jimmy. It's not too hard to find for the Sega Genesis or the Super Nintendo, but the NES version can cost a pretty penny, and it's somewhat rare. So let's take a look at Battletoads and Double Dragon and see what we think.